This little Tohatsu or Mercury or whichever sticker happens to be on your engine cowl isn't starting very well and it doesn't want to idle. That's pretty easy to fix that. Important disclaimer, I am a layperson and it may be in your best interest to talk to some subject matter experts if you're having difficulty with your own engine. Okay, that came out really easy, right? I'm going to show you a couple things to remember though. First, your fasteners in here to take the carburetor off. There is like a barrel which acts like a bushing in here. Don't lose that. You've got your gasket, then a spacer, then another gasket. Don't lose those. You have a choke connection, and in the back here, it's going to be a little hard to see. There is a throttle connection. You may want to open or close the throttle a little for optimal positioning to tip that out and remove the carburetor, tip that throttle cable out and remove the carburetor. And then here you would tip the intake and remove the choke cable from the carburetor. So you basically turn the carburetor and drop the throttle cable out, turn the intake, drop the choke out. All right. Now take the two screws off the bowl. All right. Not terribly dirty in there. Clean up a little of my mess. To take the bowl off, you're going to need something like a screw or a nail or a punch to tap the rod holding the bowl and needle out. I'm going to use a screw and give it a couple of taps. Make sure that you tap the splines down and out. One side of the rod has splines, the other does not. The splines just friction fit the rod into the little holes. So make sure you're tapping it out the correct direction. Spin this around, pop her out. Be very careful that you do not lose the internals to this. Do not ramrod it or damage it. There we go. I don't know if you can see that, just popped out of the bottom there. And then up here, we're gonna back this one out, spin this one back out. Be very careful, do not over tighten. All right. Now, what I would consider an essential thing in your toolbox here is a wire twist tie. Okay, so I've got a little bit of wire exposed there, and all I'm going to do is just make sure that it passes through. I'm not going to ream or ramrod. I just want to make sure that these little openings here are clear. Make sure there's nothing blocking. Just make sure that these are all clear. So in the end of this one, the opening is too small to put the wire tie through. So I would put on some safety glasses and make sure that you're getting some carb cleaner pushed through. Once you know that that piece is clear, then use your carb cleaner to spray out the rest of your little carburetor pieces. Make sure that you get good flow blown through. Important tip here, clean out your carburetor bowl, but do not spray that gasket with carb cleaner. It will deform and wrinkle, and you'll have to replace it. And I'm going to take this out and spray, spray the body out, make sure it's clean in here, and then we'll come back, put it back together. All right, so returning this bit. Again, snug, don't crank. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on putting that needle for the float back in because mine has a loop. Yours may have a slot for the needle to fit into. There's a couple different variations. Just remember when you put the float back in that you keep the splines of this little rod up. Give it a couple of taps to make sure that it is seated. And once you have it seated in there, make sure that you can move the bowl up and down freely and that that little float needle moves. Okay, this is pretty important for your final assembly. Make sure the screw to drain the bowl of the carburetor is facing out. If you put the bowl on backwards, you won't be able to drain it while it's mounted on the motor. If you have contaminated fuel or water in your fuel, it's very easy to give that screw a couple of turns and drain the bowl. If you put it on backwards, you can't get at it. It's almost impossible to put these hoses back on the carburetor and then feed them back through the engine cowling. What I would do is feed them up through the bottom and then pull them up to the carburetor. It's way less frustrating. Now put your carburetor back in with these attached again. Try to keep my head out of the way. So put that one on right there. Get the throttle fed back in. Okay. Now choke fed back in, and now put your gaskets and spacer back. The spacer and the gaskets have like a little ear sticking down, so we're going to use that to line them up and get. Remember, don't lose your little barrels like I just did. I could try and fish that out of there now. All right, get that one started. Get this one kind of started. All right, now get that little barrel back through there. Okay, I'm gonna put the little tab one corresponding to the engine. I'll get the holes lined up here, and I'll get this started. And then I'll just swing the other side up into place, okay? So just swing these up. I know this is gonna be impossible to see because of my hands. There. That should be all of them, right where you want them. That one. And now that last one. Okay, so just snug them up a little. And make sure your choke works. Check your throttle. Oh, the other thing too, might not be the worst thing to move your throttle ahead and back to give you your best position. Not imperative, but just kind of preference. Last thing, reconnect your fuel line. There. Okay. I'm not super happy with this, so I'm going to reroute it. And redo it, but I'll do that off camera. All right, let's see how we did. So muffs don't really work with small engines. I found it's easier to just set them in a bucket. So let's see if we improved the hard start and no idle speed that this little Tohatsu was having there. So I'll try it first, no choke. Give her a little choke. So we're definitely starting better, and looks like it's gonna run. A little more water in my bucket. As always, make sure your cooling water is keeping on the bottom there, and there you go. I don't know how long that took, not very long. Probably 10 to 15 minutes if I were just doing it to do it. There you go. Hope that helps somebody.